The AllStar app, the #1 app in the business. UFC, Bellator, One Championship, PFL, and more. Get the app right now. Link in description. Man, how was the flight, man? It's a long flight to Vegas, but it's not your first trip, so it's not too bad, right?
Yeah, second trip, and I must say second time around was much better than the first time. That the first flight is like 15 and a half hours, so it's quite intense, and then the second flight is like 5.5. So, but much better than the first time around. So much better. I rested well.
When did you guys get in?
I think we got in about 12 days before fight night. So it's like 5 days ago. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So we have enough time to settle in as well, just with like the amount of days it takes just to climatize as well. So it helps.
Have you always been good at climatizing yourself, or is it something new that you're just getting used to?
No, I must say it's every single time we've done it was quite smooth. It's quite challenging the first 2 days, just because the time difference is quite substantial. But yeah, after that it's smooth sailing. So I don't really have any problems with that.
All right, man. UFC 282, you're going to make your UFC debut. You were supposed to face Ronnie Lawrence. They pulled him out of the fight in the middle of training camp. There was a few weeks there where it seemed like you didn't have an opponent. What was the UFC telling you during that time?
Yeah, to be honest, like we knew we were gonna get a fight. That was something that was communicated. Like we'll get an opponent. There were some guys that were thrown around, but nothing was set in stone. And I think also to get an international guy on short notice to have their visa sorted and stuff like that is something that is quite timely. So, for about 2 weeks, or let me say 10 days, I didn't hear quite a lot. I just knew I'm coming to Vegas, so I'll be ready. And even if I got onto the flight and I was on the way over here and they told me, listen, we don't have an opponent, my plan was still to make weight, because I know there's a bunch of other bantamweight fights on my card as well. So um, you never know what happens, so you need to be ready. And that was the mental approach I took coming into fight week.
Your mind wasn't playing tricks on you during that time where there was no opponent, but you've been getting ready for quite some time, right?
Yeah, yeah, obviously, after the contender series, when I took off a week and then I was back in camp, so it's been a long preparation. So obviously, if you don't have a name connected to the date, it's quite hard. But like I said, I was willing to fight anybody. So my mental approach was not fixated on someone per se, but rather on the date, the evening, and the way I want to perform. So it was more on focusing on myself and making sure I'm in tip top shape. And yeah, now we in fight week, well, close to it, and I'm excited.
Yes, Steven Koslow, he steps in. It's kind of weird how the world works out. He has the exact same record as you do. What are your thoughts on him and the skill set?
I have a lot of respect for him. Obviously, in my limited research that I could do of him, he is obviously a very highly touted grappler. He is very good on the ground. He has very good stand up as well. He's coming in here to also make a statement in his debut. I think he is deserving of a contract, and taking the fight on short notice. Hats off to him. But yeah, at the end of the day, the results will stay the same. My hand will be raised come fight night.
You became the EFC bantamweight champion in just your fifth professional fight. It was a main event, big fight atmosphere, 5 rounds. How much did that fight prepare you for that contender series stage?
Yeah, it was a massive. I think the opportunities I've had since my debut has actually set up my future fights very well. I made my professional debut in South Africa in front of what was then about 6,000 people. in a place we call the Sun Arena in Pretoria, my hometown as well. So like my debut, that was a lot of pressure, and then obviously at 21 years old, fighting for a world title in the EFC, it was also a massive opportunity to really go showcase and perform under a severe amounts of pressure. And although the amount of fans weren't as big due to COVID, obviously, I think the magnitude of and the importance of that win was just enough to really come into what you can call hostile, hostile environment. Fighting American, fighting someone in Joshua Kim who is very, very respected and very experienced, and coming into his backyard and really fighting for a contract. I think my whole career has set me up for that. And luckily, I have such an amazing team. I have such amazing training partners that that was quite easy to deal with and manage through the fight.
Yeah, you did phenomenal. There was a lot of hype around Josh, and you kind of came in as an unknown because of where you're from, and international fighters usually don't have as much hype as the fighters based in the US. But the anxiety, the pressure, what I mean, how have you become comfortable with that? When did you become comfortable with that?
I think it's like I said before, it's since I started with my career. Even in South Africa, there was a lot of resistance of me turning professional at the age of 18. People wanted me to go fight IMAFs. People wanted me to travel and to only fight as an amateur and gain experience. And we were actually against that. It didn't make sense for us to actually pay a, a lot of money just to try and travel, and money that we didn't really have. So and we knew, when I say we, our team, and my head coach Mornay Visser, he knew I was ready to go pro. He knew I was ready to take the main stage, and really perform at the highest level. So it's there's always been pressure, but with that there's always been a lot of faith and motivation and drive to really prove the naysayers wrong. And I think nothing changed in the contender series fight. We also got that on quite short notice. So we had to act fast and make a decision of whether this is good for my career. But like South Africans, and especially Afrikaans guys, we never back down for a fight. I've never said no to any challenge. So we were ready for that. And when we were ready, we got to work, and it worked out pretty well, I think.
When you rewatched that Contender Series fight with your coaches, what were some of the things that they pointed out to you?
So after the fight, we actually went to the PI, and the coach already had a lot of stuff that he wanted to fix. So it just also speaks volumes of how our coach is wired to really focus on improving us constantly. And he has such a brilliant brain when it comes to development, and what he predicts will become future things to look out for or to improve. So the sport is constantly changing. So he already had a long list of things that he wanted me to fix. And honestly, when I didn't watch the fight for a whole week. In the time that I was off, I didn't watch the fight at all under coach's instructions. And then day 8, obviously, I got to watch the fight. And I wasn't disappointed, but I knew I could have finished the fight earlier. So I watched it quite critically, and I think there are a bunch of mistakes I made in terms of just small technical things that I think we could have done better. I think we can push the pace even more, and I feel now that I'm in better shape than I was before the contender series fight. So there's a there's a type of I want to keep myself accountable and hold myself to a very high regard. So I know what I can perform at, and I'll be looking to improve on the past performance come Saturday.
Saturday, you're going to be facing Koslow, and when you compare him to Joshua and Kim, do you see a more difficult challenge?
I wouldn't say more difficult. I would say much different. I think their fighting styles are quite different. I think where Josh moves a lot more, Steven is very more patient, and he's very stagnant. But then again, where Josh was well known for his stand up, Koslow is well known for his grappling. So it's I would say it's more opposites than the same, and but like I said, we have to be ready for anything. And I came here with a mental preparation of fighting anyone. So it's not about the opponent. It's about what I want to do, and I plan to go out there and I plan to get the finish.
CIT, that's your home. That's the team, and you've been there for almost a decade now. You know what I mean? That's a tremendous. That's tremendous to me. It's like that means you were there when you were a little kid. You know what I mean? Take us back to like the first time you stepped into the gym and just were exposed to martial arts there.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. I'm turning 22 on the 20th of December. I joined Team CIT when I was 14. So my first experience was coming in there, and it was like a very rough, always how they depict it in movies. Like the old scruff, like dirty. It was like that. It was like a basement gym. It was hidden in this dodgy area in what we call Hatfield. It's close to Pretoria CBD. It's very dodge, but getting in there and meeting some of the guys that I looked up to. Like a year before that, I was staying with my parents. On the pictures I had sellotaped on the wall were pictures of the guys that I saw at CIT. So that was quite surreal to me, getting to meet the guys in South African MMA that I really looked up to and still look up to this day, So, and just figuring out the rules and the kinks, and just getting to learn that these guys are a very tight knit group of people, and like a small family, and the professional team is like a band of brothers that look after each other. So that makes this event also so much more special. Getting to compete with my teammate Dricus Du Plessis is an absolute honor. He was my first coach when I joined CIT. So, he was the guy teaching the amateur classes at that stage, and then it slowly developed in not only a coach student relationship, but then into a friendship. And now we are under the same coach, Coach Mornay Visser, and now we are not only good friends but also training partners. So it's a massive honor for me.
For sure, man. And like you said, you're going to be on the same card as Dricus, and the training camp environment must be at another level, right? Because it's such a big fight for you. It's your debut, and it's such a big fight for him because he's going to be able to crack the top 10 in the world.
Yeah, most definitely. I think our team as a whole has been having amazing momentum in this year. We have achieved a lot as a team. So I think everyone was super motivated, or still is super motivated, to end the year off on a high. And I must say, Dricus is on an absolute tear. He is mentally in the best space I've ever seen him. Physically, he's an absolute beast in the gym, and he is always the front runner when it comes to setting an example for the rest of the teammates at Team CIT. So it is very helpful for someone like me, because I also want to set a good example for the guys that we train with. So, we hoped and we dreamt that we get to share a card. I didn't expect it to happen this soon, but when we got the opportunity, obviously we were head over heels, and then we got to work.
Definitely, definitely. You guys get to put the South African stamp on the event coming up, man. It's beautiful to see, man. I love seeing like, me being a person from outside the US. I love to see the international talent come in and make a mark like yourself. How do you envision, picking up this first UFC victory inside that octagon?
That's a very good question. I always have these type of we have a great mental coach here, Henny Engelbrecht, and sometimes it comes in these visions, these flashes, these scenes. Sometimes dreams. I dream a lot about fighting, so when I wake up, I'm quite exhausted as well. Um, you know, last time I just told Henny, left hook is gonna land somewhere. Left hook, left hook, left hook, and I kept on repeating that. And this time, funny enough, there's a few scenes in my head of how I think this can go, and I'm really open minded when it comes to this finish. Obviously, Joshua Kim was known for his stand up, and I wanted to prove a point by finishing on the feet, and we got to do that. Especially when trying to win a contract, you need to do that, And my first initial thought was, Koslow is a grappler. I want to finish him on the ground. That's my dream. That's what I want to do. But going into this fight, I'm very open minded of how the fight can go. I respect Koslow on the feet and on the ground. So really just taking in the whole experience and looking for the finish as quickly as possible. I think that's gonna be a massive thing. I want a fast finish, and whether that's on the feet or on the ground, so be it.
December 10th, UFC 282 in Las Vegas. Cameron, thank you so much for the time. If you want to know more about him or the event, go in descriptions, download the AllStar app. Man, it's an incredible fight. I'm excited for your debut, man. You impressed a lot of people in that Contender Series fight. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And yes, stay tuned. The MSP show is going to be on fire December 10th, so I can't wait.